And so I'm sitting there just waiting. I'm just there. And dude's getting up and he's swinging up. And I'm going, don't. And I'm just looking at him going, don't do it. I'm in my head and I'm just praying. It's like all of it's going, all my energy's going to that guy. Drop it. And it's like.
Welcome to Vivid Bits. Today we are counting down the top 5 craziest combat stories told on the Shawn Ryan Show. All the way from Delta Force operators to Navy SEALs. Here are some crazy stories that will have you on the edge of your seat. All credit goes to Shawn Ryan and the Shawn Ryan Show. All the links to the full interviews will be linked in the description below. Now let's get right into the video. Coming in at number 5. Chris Vansant talks about crazy combat stories in Somalia.
You went to Africa.
Yeah.
Towards the end of your time.
Yeah, so the end of the 06 rotation, I came back. A guy that I had worked with that had been my team leader for a brief stint had moved to a different place in the building, doing more clandestine work, or advanced forces AFO stuff. So in the years leading up to 2007, General McChrysler, who was the JSOC commander, had been slowly but surely spreading out intelligence collection kind of around the globe. And I think, the phrase was, you need a network to fight a network. And he was smart enough to identify that Al-Qaeda's got cells all over the world. There's a network of folks that are communicating. The long and short of it is there's a lot of people out there that want to kill Americans and that have been a part of that. And we need to be forward and collect intelligence in other countries besides Afghanistan and Iraq. So in late 06, I got asked to come up and try out for this other part of our organization that was really focused on stuff outside of Iraq and Afghanistan. And at the same time that I had gone through that and done that and joined that part of the building, they stood up a new task force in DC, and the task force was designed with combating AQ threats, greater GWAT stuff outside of the Middle East. The Horn of Africa was a particularly big hotbed. What they had figured out was that Somalia, being the lawless land that it is, was the perfect place to not only recruit from, but to ship foreign fighters from various countries around Africa and the Middle East down to train them, prepare them, give them skills like IED building and marksmanship and whatever, and then put them on boats, ship them up to Yemen, and then via Yemen back into the Middle East to go kill Americans wherever that may be. So it was an integral part of the foreign fighter network, and we wanted to do something about it. So in early 07, or I guess early spring of 07, I got to deploy to the Horn of Africa, working out of the embassy in Nairobi, Kenya. We had, intelligence collection in various countries throughout the Horn, but I was one of 2 guys from my organization. We had 2 guys from Dev Group, 2 guys from the Air Force equivalent of those 2 organizations, so a combat controller and a pararescue guy. 2 guys from another Army organization based out of Virginia, and then a couple of Ranger Recon Detachment operators. So we called it the Rainbow Coalition because it was 2 guys from each color of the rainbow. 2 guys from green, 2 guys from blue, 2 guys from red, 2 guys from white. That was our little joke, along with a bunch of other assets that were involved with really intelligence processing and understanding. Africa was different in that it was new. I wasn't surrounded by my squadron mates. I was lucky in that the SEALs that I ended up with were guys that were a part of the exchange back early on in the war, that McChrysler had directed, and we were all kind of at the same points in our career. So while they were moving into the clandestine element of their organization, I was doing the same. So when we met in Africa, it wasn't the first time we'd ever seen each other. So it made for a very easy, comfortable environment where we could do some high-level stuff together without a whole bunch of time to train together, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Limited assets. We didn't have much. We had no ISR. We had no Predators. We had no close air support. We had no AC-130. Our intelligence collection was human, was meeting with people on the ground and gathering information. We had a signal intelligence platform, so we had one airframe that flew overhead that listened to real-time voice calls via Thoriphones and other handheld satellites that the terrorists were using. And we had a couple of indigenous speakers that we would put on the plane and would listen to those real-time phone calls, and had been doing it for the last 5 years and could recognize key players' voices. And so that was literally how we were targeting. To fast forward, in, I guess, the tail end of May, early June, we started getting some traffic in Mombasa, Kenya. So we had some human intelligence that directed us to there. And then we put that one asset that we had overhead. And lo and behold, they got a hit on probably two of the most wanted guys in the world, which were a guy named Harun Fazul and a guy named Saleh Nabhan, which were responsible for the U.S. Embassy bombings in Nairobi, Kenya, and Dar es Salaam, Tanzania in 1993. And so long time targets, been on the list for a long time. This is 2007, so it's a long time later. But what they were involved in was basically that foreign fighter trafficking into and out of southern Somalia, and the training of those guys, and then subsequently moving them back into the Middle East. So we knew we needed to do something. We just didn't have the assets to go interdict anywhere, and we certainly couldn't do a hit in downtown Mombasa, Kenya. So we got lucky. The last communication we had from them was that they were boarding a boat, and it was 18 to 20 terrorists or so, and that they were headed north. They were stopping in southern Somalia and then continuing on to Sana'a, Yemen, where they were going to dump their guys off for movement into the Middle East. So on the onset, we had what we thought were the number 2 and 3 most wanted dudes on the planet, Osama bin Laden being number 1. This was 2 and 3. And outside of the Middle East, we had them on a boat. We had them moving north along the coast of Somalia, but we had no way to interdict them at sea. So we came up with a hasty plan. We had been working, the CIA over the years leading up to that had developed a relationship with some folks in Somalia. And one of them was the Puntland Defense Force, so northern Somalia in the town of Bosaso. These were basically Somalis that were recruited via various means, but mostly money, to help us achieve things in that country. So they were the best friends money could buy at the moment. We ended up flying from Nairobi, Kenya up to Djibouti, where there was a U.S. naval base. We dumped half of our guys there, and then 3 of us flew from Djibouti. When I say half, it's 6 guys.
Yeah.
We left 3 in Djibouti to coordinate some assets or what we had, like an aircraft if we needed it for Casevac, start talking to our higher headquarters about what's going on and what we're trying to do. And then we flew and forward staged in Bosaso, Somalia, and linked up with the PDF, as we called them. The PDF there was led by a guy that was basically a former Somali warlord. But again, he was sympathetic to our cause and was not a fan of foreigners and foreign fighters coming into Somalia to train. That just he wasn't good with that either. So his name was Bashir. And so we linked up with Bashir, handful of his guys, and we basically tried to figure out what we were going to do about this boat moving north. And we were kind of hoping and praying that we would pick them up again and get a good fix on their location, or that they would stop and they would give us some course of action. Well, about the time that all this is going on, we're flying a plane up the coast of Somalia, trying to gather some whatever we can, and they catch them on the phone. And they had, High Sea State off the Horn, which is a notoriously bad shipping lane in terms of sea conditions. Rough seas had forced them aground on the coast and actually damaged their ship. It was in the town of Bargal, and they got in a shootout with locals in the town. They stole a bunch of supplies like water and food from the townspeople, and then they moved up into the hills just outside of town. So they couldn't get back on their boat because their boat was damaged. All we got, so now we're getting real-time human intelligence, all we got out of the townspeople was that, hey, these guys are all foreigners, they're all from other places, and they're heavily armed, they have a bunch of guns, there's a bunch of them, and we don't understand why they're here. This is the conversation that's going on. So, the 3 of us that were in Bosaso, it was me, a guy from Dev, and a CCT guy. We're well, we got to do something. We have an opportunity to get, number 2 and number 3 most wanted dudes on the planet. We got to do something. So we came up with a plan with Bashir and the PDF guys that we were going to fly and get as close to Bargal as we could, stop about 2 hours west of the town. And then he was going to coordinate for some folks in the area to come pick us up. And then, we were going to drive into Bargal and figure out, what we were going to do with this. So that all went down. When we were on the way out of town, Brady and I, the CCT guy and I, were in one vehicle, and Phil, the Navy guy, was in the other vehicle, and we're with Somalis. And we're driving down the road, and this vehicle comes screaming down the road behind us, like high rate of speed, like dirt spilling out everywhere. And we're freaking out. Like, none of the guys in the car speak English. The only person that does is Bashir. He doesn't know what's going on, and this car is chasing us down. So they're honking their horn, and our guys pull over, and we're like, what are you doing? So we're ready to go, thinking this is somebody that spotted us coming out of town. And they pull up, stop, get out. It's guys that they know. What it was they had forgot their big bags of cot, and they didn't want to leave without them. They forgot their drugs.
Yeah.
So, and that was typical working with Somalis. About midday, they would start chewing cot. Mid-afternoon, they were useless. So if you didn't get it done in the morning, it wasn't happening. But, so that was a little high-stress moment leading up to that. But we ended up getting on a plane, flying out. His guys showed up. So it was the three of us, Bashir, and a handful of his loyalists. And we drove into Bargal. On the way into Bargal, we were kind of working on a hasty plan, and we had nothing, so we just kind of worked with what we knew to be true, what we had hard facts on, and we kind of backwards planned from there. So, Brady, the CCT guy, was like, look, man, we need a way to get out of here. Like, what are our options? Like, we got a fixed wing plane in Djibouti that could come get us. We got our guys that are coordinating there, and we've got some PJs that were stationed there. So we've got some options, but it's like 5 hours away. And he's like, well, there's a Russian airfield that's south of the city that I saw on the map, old dirt strip. He's like, why don't we stop on the way into town and survey that airfield and make sure we can land that bird there just in case. Perfect. Great idea. So we stopped, surveyed the airfield. It was probably the quickest airfield survey a CCT guy has ever done, but he felt good enough that we could land a plane on this dirt strip. So we left from there. Phil, the Navy guy's like, hey, man, there's a Navy destroyer off the coast. Can't see him, but he's out there somewhere doing anti-piracy operations. So this is before Captain Phillips, a year before that all went down. But so they're out there just burning holes in the ocean, trying to deter Somali pirates from doing what ended up happening a year later. And so he's like, why don't we call that destroyer? It was the USS Chaffee. And Brady's like, cool. He's like, I can do that. Like, we'll call him in the blind and be like, hey, you got U.S. forces on the ground. He's like, I can pre-plan some targets. They got deck guns. Like, if we get in trouble, we've got some naval gunfire. Awesome. Great. And they're like, well, how are we going to do this? And I'm like, well, I think we just basically need to get there with our dudes. We need to set up a patrol base between the town and wherever we think they are, because we don't have an exact on their location. I said, it's 110 degrees outside. Let's bring the aircraft down so they can hear it. Let's bring the boat in over the horizon line so they can see a U.S. naval warship off the coast and set up a patrol base out of small arms range, but where they can see us. Let's just wait them out. I'm like, there's nowhere to go. They're thousands of miles in any direction from the next town, through the desert. It's 110 degrees outside. Their boat's damaged. I go, they're going to start being heat casualties soon. Like, they weren't prepared to be here. We are. We have the ability to access the town, whatever, and we've got some friendlies, Somali friendlies with us. We'll just wait it out. So we pull in. Everybody's good with it. The three of us feel good about it. It's basically the three of us and 8 or 10 Somalis. So to our knowledge, there's 18 to 20 some of them, and they got bell feds and a bunch of other stuff. We didn't have shit. We had rifles and pistols, and a handful of Somalis with AKs. We did have 2 machine guns, but not a ton of ammunition for either one of those that the Somalis brought with them. And so we set up our little hasty patrol base, and we're waiting. And in the early part of the day, it's hot, and we're dying. And Bashir's like, we need to go get these guys. And we're like, nah, man, we can't do it. And again, he's the only one that speaks English. He's like, no, we need to go do it. And he keeps pressing. And like, we can't figure out why. And he keeps pressing. Still can't. Like, Bashir, just calm down, man. And what it was is he didn't understand. He's like, he can see the boat too. We didn't say anything about it. He can hear the plane. And he's like, at one point, he's like, why don't you just drop a bomb on them? And we're like, 1, we don't know exactly where they are. We have no way of geolocating them. 2, the battery died on their phone. They're not talking anymore. So we don't know if they moved. We don't know what's going on. We just know they're in those hills somewhere. Or like 3, like, we haven't worked a whole lot together. So like, this is a dangerous thing. Like, we just need to wait these guys out. Well, he loses patience. So it's probably 2:30, 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And he comes over to the three of us. So the Somalis are kind of spread around, just doing their thing, chewing cot. And the three of us are like, just trying to figure out like what's next, because we can't just shoot naval gunfire. Like, we basically have to get in an engagement to do anything. And we're in a country we're not supposed to be in. We got no air assets, no CAS, no nothing. So Bashir walks over and he goes, I'm taking my guys and I'm going over the hill to kill them. And I go, what? And he goes, you can come with me if you want, unless you're scared. He punked us, literally punked us.
Holy shit.
And so I'm like, all right, Bashir, you know, straight face. I'm like, I get it. I get it. Like, we need to do something. I understand. I go, can you give us a minute? Let us talk and come up with a little hasty plan here. And I'll be right back with you. He says, fine. So he walks off to his guys. And I turn around where he can't see me and I start laughing. And Phil and Brady are like, what are you laughing at? And I go, you guys aren't going to believe this. I was like, but when you go through Robin Sage in the Q course, you have a G chief, a guerrilla warlord guy that's pretending that's his thing, and he has his little G's. And I go, and they act like complete assholes, and they do things like this. And when you're in the Q course, you're like, no way this ever happens. And here we are in Somalia, and this former warlord is going, are you too scared to come with me? And so, you know, we had a quick conversation, and I'm like, look, we're going to lose the faith of these guys. These are our only security. We're a 5-hour flight, a really long swim to a boat. We got no assets, no nothing. Like, we can't lose this. Like, we need to keep these guys on our side. We didn't trust them to begin with. You know, we hadn't worked with them a whole bunch, and it wasn't a very comfortable feeling. It wasn't like we had been training these guys and working with them for months on end.
Yeah.
Supposedly the CIA had trained them for the last few years, but I can tell you what we saw was not a highly trained force. So anyway, so we end up pulling Bashir in, and we explained to him that basically we're going to do a movement to contact, you know, bounding overwatch. And we ended up putting the gun teams on either side, not so much because of the tactics, but because we were afraid about having them too close to us.
Yeah.
And what would happen. So we had a gun team to our right flank, a gun team to our left flank. The three of us were staying together no matter what. And then we had a couple other Somalis and Bashir with us. And so we start this bounding overwatch. We'd move a gun team up, move another gun team up, and so on and so on. And so we crest over the first hill. About the time we get over the first hill, headed up to the larger ridge, we hear a belt fed open up. And it's to the north of us. And they're shooting at the guys on our right flank. Can't tell exactly where it's coming from, but we can tell that that's the only ones that they can see. So we continue to move up to gain the high ground on this ridge line to try to get a better fix on their position. About the time we get up there, we realize where they are, not too far from our position. We engage those guys, but then all hell breaks loose. So in the draw behind the ridge that we're on, we're taking heavy fire. Ineffective, we're behind like this ridge of rocks. So we've got some cover, it's good cover, but man, they are just... So we got a couple of dudes that have been dealt with on the north side, but they have shot and wounded both of the guys in our gun team to our right flank. About the time that we're trying to figure out exactly where they are below us. Now, we got no grenades, we've got nothing, like I said.
Shit.
Small arms. About that time, bullets come. I'm here, Phil and Bashir over there. The two Somalis are a little bit further to his left, and then the gun team is beyond them. And then Brady's on my right, and then the wounded gun team on his right. And so rounds come cracking right across the front of me, the cover I'm standing at, like skip off the rock right in front of me. And Brady and I both look left at the same time, and dudes are maneuvering up the ridge line. There's 4 or 5 guys that are coming up the ridge. And so all this in a split second, that first like barrage of fire, Bashir is like just standing out in the open, gets shot 3 times. So Phil grabs him, pulls him down behind cover, and is like packing like Kerlex and gauze in his holes. Brady and I both turn, and I move to a piece of cover between me and the guys on the left flank. Yell to Brady, hey, move to me, move to me, move to me. Suppress the fire, Brady moves to me. Now it's the two of us. The 2 Somalis that are up here with us are now cowering down behind the rocks and terrified, like not returning fire, not anything. And I think, well, at least they're not going to shoot us, right? They're there. The gun team between us and them are now in a shootout with the guys. So half the guys that are coming up the ridge are shooting at the 2 Somalis on our left flank. The other half of the guys are shooting at Brady and I. It's kind of whack-a-mole. Brady and I ended up shooting rounds between a bunch of rocks and just ricocheting a bunch of rounds into the dudes, and they would peel out to one side or the other, and, you know, we kind of dealt with it. But anyway, in the midst of that portion, we ended up dealing with all those guys, but they had wounded not just Bashir, but the other 2 guys. So now I've got 5 wounded Somalis, including the only one that speaks English.
Shit.
And the 3 of us. So everybody on the ridge is down. I'm not worried about, it doesn't seem to be, we have good visibility that we've got any more threat coming up the ridge line above or below, but we're still getting hammered from down below. And I'm like, I don't know what our move is from here. Like, the 3 of us were like, we don't have a lot of options here. And Brady goes, how about some naval gunfire? And so, you know, the 3 of us kind of looked at each other and we're like, all right, yeah, we can do this. Like, let's just they're all in one spot. Let's hammer this draw. We had already talked to them, pre-planned targets. So the boat was ready and aware, and they were jacked up. Like, they didn't even know we were there.
I'll bet they were fucking pumped.
We called them in the blind. It was a really funny, like, 20-minute conversation before we had gotten into that position, and you could hear them in the background, like, yeah! Like, they knew they were getting ready to get some. And so Brady is on the horn with the boat. I have a handheld satellite radio because I'm like, we can't do this unless I call troops in contact over the SATCOM. Like, they got to know we've been engaged, that we didn't just shoot naval gunfire into a country we're not supposed to be into. And so, so Brady's talking to the boat, calling in naval gunfire. I'm calling in troops in contact over SATCOM. I said that we had wounded, but I didn't say who, because I was worried that if it was just Somalis, we weren't going to get the same reaction, which I don't know if that was the right call or the wrong call, but it was the call that I made at the time. And so we ended up grabbing up as many of the Somalis as we could, and we started pulling back off the ridge. Right about that time, rounds come overhead. I think Brady had him shoot like 24 rounds or something off the deck guns into the valley and walked them up and down as we pulled back off the ridge. So we get back down to our patrol base. There's no more fire coming from the hills other than, you know, the smoke and everything that's left, dust from the naval barrage. We get in the patrol base. Phil basically, like, almost on his own. I think I helped him with like the first 2 guys treating casualties, but Phil basically patched up all them dudes by himself. I was talking to Basaso was talking to Djibouti was talking to Nairobi was talking to JSOC at Bragg was talking to SecDef in DC. So this was like,
damn,
like, it was wild.
Yeah.
And again, they asked me twice about casualties. And I said, you know, we have a casualty collection point. We're treating our wounded. We're unsure of their status at this moment, but that we were working on it and we were all right. But we needed CASEVAC, and we needed it now because they were a 5-hour flight away. So we patch up the Somalis. It's getting dark now. There's no sounds. There's no fire. There's nothing coming out of the hills. And basically, we don't have the ability to, like, go over there at night. We've got no workforce anymore. We had 3 Somalis, I think, down in the village that had weapons, but they weren't really a part of what we were doing. So we had those 3 stay in the patrol base. We commandeered a couple of vehicles from town. We loaded up the wounded, and we drove 10 minutes down the road to get to the dirt airfield. However many hours later, they landed a CASA on the dirt airfield, and our guys from Djibouti got out, along with a bunch of PJs that they brought from Djibouti to secure the wounded and treat those guys. They got off with us, so ammo resupply, brought some other stuff with them. The bird left with the wounded to fly back to Djibouti, and then the 5 of us went back to the patrol base and basically just camped out for the night until the sun came up. We didn't tell anybody that there weren't any Americans on the plane, the wounded. So when it showed up in Djibouti, it was PJs with a bunch of wounded Somalis, and no one in Djibouti was even aware of the operation. So they ended up in the hospital there on the naval base in Djibouti, and all those guys ended up living, which is cool. But yeah, we kind of surprised them with that one. So the sun comes up the next morning. We ended up going over the hill as a more capable force, because now there were 6 of us. And we had one local that we had recruited out of town that spoke enough English that we could at least communicate with the Somalis that were with us. They weren't really willing to go over the hill again because they had witnessed what happened the day before. But they eventually and reluctantly came with us, and we thought at least they could help us with recovery of some of the bodies if it was 2 and 3 or whatever. Yeah, no, they're Arabs, and they weren't touching a body after that much time later. So we ended up moving through the area. A couple of guys dying. Most of them were already dead. We had a guy that we thought for sure was Harun Fazul. Looked just like him. I mean, same skin tone, and had a pair of glasses. Like, it was a lot of similarities that we thought it was him. Nobody that looked like Nabhan. And the rest of the guys were like a who's who of bad guys from around the globe. Like 2 guys with British passports, like legit British passports.
No shit.
A Yemeni, a Syrian. Like, it was this random collection of, it was exactly what we thought it was. And so we're on the radio. We've got a possible for Harun Fazul, whatever his call sign was at the time. And they're like, all right, well, we're going to fly in an SSE team to do DNA testing and confirm. We need you to take them up to the site. And we're like, we're not doing that. And they're like, what? Why wouldn't you do that? And I'm like, I'm not taking an FBI team that's never been to combat, never been trained, into the hills of northern Somalia where I don't know how many guys are still running around out here. Like, I had no way to confirm or deny if we'd gotten them all. I knew we had a bunch of bodies, but I had no way of knowing if we had gotten everybody. And so there's some back and forth on the radio. What we ended up agreeing on was we bagged up the guy that we thought was Harun Fazul, and we carried him off the mountain, threw him in the back of a truck, and then drove him down to the airfield. So when they landed, all they had to do was get off the plane and deal with the possible. And then we could give them all the other intel we collected, so passports and money and they had laptops and all kinds of stuff. Smorgasbord of intel. It was a decent hit in that respect. But yeah, so the FBI guys get off the plane. I unzip the body bag for them. They peel it back. It took them 2 seconds. They grabbed him. They rolled him up on his side. They pulled his shirt up, and he had no scar. And they said, it's not him. And we were like, what? And they're like, it's not him. I'm like, how do you know that fast that it's not him? You didn't do anything. And they go, yeah, Harun Fazul had appendicitis. He had his appendix taken out in whatever year. He's got no scar where his appendix was removed. And we're like, damn, that quick. They just shut, like, all that for nothing, We're all proud of ourselves. So we're bummed out. We're like, all right, well, let's wrap it up. Like, the rest of those bodies, we got plenty of intel. Like, it is what it is. Like, the Somalis are all still alive. They're back in Djibouti. Let's get out of here. So we loaded up and flew back to Djibouti. There's a little bit of a reception there from the handful of people that did know where we were. We get to the hangar, and, all 3 of us are just covered in blood. Not our own, but I've got cuts all up and down my arms from the sharp corally rocks that we've been moving around on the ridgeline. And then, the wounded Somalis and all that stuff. So we looked quite a sight to people that saw us coming into the hangar that we were in. And about 5 minutes after we're there, a little Navy dude comes knocking on the door, opens the door, comes in. He says, hey, the admiral that is in charge of the base needs whoever was just involved in whatever went down to come brief him. And we're like, okay. Can you give us a few minutes, like, to clean up, like, whatever? And he's like, well, he just said as soon as possible. And we're like, okay, whatever. So let's tell him we're coming. So the kid leaves. We, like, run through the shower, put on a fresh set of DCUs or whatever we were wearing, pants and shirts. And so we leave. We walk onto the main compound there off the airfield. We finally find where his little headquarters is. We walk in, and one of his staffos or secretary or somebody's like, the admiral's back here, blah, blah, blah. So they take us in this little conference room. And he's sitting at the head of the table. He's standing up, and a couple of his staff officers, junior guys are in the room with him. And he's like, gentlemen, how you doing? Come on in and have a seat. And so we go in and we sit down. And he's like, mind you, the whole way over there, we're like, we're screwed. Like, this dude is going to flip a gasket. Like, who are you? How was I not aware of this? How did you involve my warship that I'm responsible for? Who cleared this? We're assuming no conversation has been had, and it hasn't. So he's like, look, you guys have had a pretty wild, rough 24 hours, huh? And we were like, yes, sir. Like, just waiting. And he's like, so tell me the story. Like, how did you get there? And we're like, well, and we kind of gave him the brief, Like, we've been doing some targeting. We've been working on this. We've been in and out of Somalia a number of times. We had an opportunity at some really important folks and to disrupt the network in a substantial way. And we just felt like it was an opportunity that we needed to take. And he's like, well, you know, had you been planning this? And we were like, nope. It was pretty much a hasty decision that was supported by 3-letter agencies and DC in the moment because of the significance of the targets. And yeah, they asked us if we were okay doing it, and that's what we did. And again, I'm waiting for the reaction. And he goes, that's the coolest shit I've ever heard.
That's awesome.
And Phil, who's hilarious, Phil busts out laughing, and then it's a comfy conversation. And he's like, so you guys, the 3 of you just decided you were going to go do this. And we're like, yep. And he's like, man, you guys have some huge balls. And so to this day, if that man, whoever it is, and I don't know, I don't remember his name, but if he's ever out there and ever hears this, I've said it once before, I would love to hear from him, just to like have a conversation about that day and how funny it was and get like more of his perspective. But yeah, so it ended up being a really good engagement, and he was grateful. We were grateful that his guys reacted the way that they did, that they shifted mission. You know, they had no clue, and they were spot on. Their rounds were spot on. I mean, all their training and anything they'd ever done in peacetime came to fruition.
That's some of the coolest shit I've ever fucking heard.
Coming in at number 4, Chris Beck talks on sparing an enemy insurgent's life during combat in Afghanistan.
So I was at the team, and we were doing missions, and we were going after some real big bad dudes. And I have a ton of those stories, but I only tell like 2 of them. But this one story is important because it's who I am. So we're going to this house, we're doing the clearing, we're walking through, and we're doing all the stuff, but we're doing it real quiet because we haven't gone hot yet. So it's all like the cover, you know, shh. We're just going through it super quiet. And I get up through this room, and I get up these stairs, and I take this right, and at the end of this hallway, I didn't know how fast I was going pretty quick. But we're pretty good about that and checking stuff, but for whatever reason, I went through the door, and it didn't have the number 2, so I was going out there alone. And out on this rooftop, so it was a door that opened out of the rooftop. And you know, in Afghanistan, they sleep on the roofs all the time because it's really hot in there, and they just want to be out in the cool air, and it's the stars. It's beautiful to sleep out there in these rooftops. Plus, there's the security points. So this guy was up there on security, pulling security for his family and for the compound. And he had the AK, and he's sitting there. And so basically, you see me, I have all the best equipment. You know, the lasers, the nogs, the night vision, you know, all the stuff. And I'm using some terminology that, but night vision, the lasers, and the gun, and it's totally prepped out, my body armor. And we have our radios on the sides with the antennas and all that stuff. So if you look at me with this green glow in there, and there's all this tech and there's lasers and all this stuff, I'm like an alien being, you know. I'm looking very high tech and very alien looking. And then I look at this guy, and you know, in retrospect, I look at this guy, and he's down there with bare feet and dirty and just raggy hair and his beard, and he had his one, you know, that thing they wear. And I used to know all these things. I used to speak some of the language, but it's kind of washed all that out. But I see this guy up there, and he's laying there sleeping. He's just starting to wake up because there's some noise and stuff that's starting to happen, because even the animals start waking up in the compound, you know. So eventually people start waking. And the guy's just getting up, and he sees it, and he's reaching up, and he's got his AK, starts coming up at me. But I'm already off safe, and I'm figuring, I'm going. It was a split second. I mean, I set a record at Shaw's shooting, you know, camp, you know, the plate shooting. I'm on that top 10 because I'm a fast shooter. And so I'm sitting there just waiting. I'm just there. And dude's getting up, and he's swinging up, and I'm going, don't. And I'm just looking at him going, don't do it. I'm in my head, and I'm just praying. It's like all of it's going, all my energy's going to that guy. Drop it. And it's like such a close. And if he was just like this much further with that barrel, and I was just like watching all of it. Why was I doing that? No rules of engagement. I could have taken him right when I walked out on there, because he was up there in security and had a gun next to him. Done. But I didn't. I was going towards him. I was still walking towards him, closing the distance. And then the guy just like right there goes, and he drops it because he saw it. So it's alien versus caveman. And I'm sitting there for about whatever seconds it took me walking towards this caveman as an alien. Different language, different religion, different culture, different everything. Super high tech, and this guy with dirt. Why was I doing that? For seconds, I was walking towards this guy. Didn't shoot. I could have. I was allowed to. Should have. I actually got in trouble because there was guys on other rooftops and there was other stuff going on in the compound. And one guy, and I can't remember who it was. I could if I really thought about it. But he saw what was going on my rooftop. He saw across because it was only maybe as wide as this room. It's not huge distances. So he saw what was going on over there. He saw it. And when we got done with the whole thing and the guy was cuffed, because basically he dropped a gun and I kicked it away and I cuffed him up against the wall. And because I did all the interrogations. So because I was ASOT type guy and I did all that stuff. So I was also the interrogator. So I'm talking to this guy through my terp. And because I was like that agency ASOT guy, I always had a terp because I was always doing this stuff. So he's my terp. And so interpreter. So he was the guy that did all the local Pashto. And I spoke some of it, but not all of it. He, I don't even speak very much at all. It's like team guy, you know, hands up and where's the bomb and this stupid stuff. But I was talking to him and he just seemed like a pretty good dude. This is after all the action, after everything was done and everything's. So I'm just talking to him and I'm getting intel and I'm trying to work with him. And he didn't know anything. And the guy was like, he was not anybody we'd ever want. And I was like, just leave this guy. And then one of the other guys was like, no, we should take him, you know, and get one. You got a guy, and he had a gun, he was security. I was like, no, man, I was going to leave this dude. And so because I had enough voice over it, because I was the interrogator, I was the guy doing all this stuff, but I was also the guy that ran source operations. So I was the field officer, you know. I was a recruiter, you know. And so I told them we need to leave this guy, and they did. And so we took off, and I, you know, it was good. Done.
You spared his life.
Spared his life. But it was seconds of me walking up on him. 2 weeks later, I'm walking through a bazaar. And if you've ever seen pictures of me, I have this big, bright red beard, unless I dye it. And over there, I dyed it a lot because I had to get it darker. But if you see me, I had a really red beard. And they used to call me Redbeard or Caveman. So it was always something about that. So 2 weeks later, 3 weeks later, it was a little while later, I'm walking through a bazaar. And I got this guy running towards me and he's saying something in Pashto. And so I start drawing my pistol because I had my long gun in the truck. And so I start drawing my pistol out because we're in a bazaar where it's like, it's not a big deal. So, and it was right there on the base. It was one of the bazaars kind of attached to the base. You know what I mean? So it was protected and there was guys all over and we had security towers like right there. So we just brought pistols in there. We just wanted to be, you know. And so I start reaching in and getting my pistol out, and Turp puts my hand down and says, no, he's saying thank you. It's like, and I was like, and me and him have been working for a long time and had super trust. And it's the dude, it's the guy. And he sees me and he's saying thank you and he hugs me. He said, come back to my shop. And so I go back to his shop, start talking to him and we become friends, you know, and I get a really great discount on a rug, you know, because he had his really cool shop. So it's a good story, huh?
Damn.
That's not the whole story.
It was the guy?
It was the guy. And so what do you think I did with that guy? So it became this amazing thing who I actually gave him over to another agency. But it was amazing. And so we're talking to the guy. Yeah. So I'm talking to the guy and it's amazing and good stuff. And because the guy was very aware because he ran that business, he was always there. He was always traveling around. Saw a lot of stuff. So amazing. And we became friends. And so the point of the story is not all that, the fact that he became a friend or he ended up being good for us. But the conversations I had with him was about, I don't want to be here, and I know that y'all don't want us to be here, so what can we do to get all these foreigners out? And you know, if you've been in Afghanistan, it wasn't really the Afghans that were doing most of the trouble, you know? It was everybody else. It was all these jihadists coming in there and trying to kill Americans. Yeah. Just like when I was in Iraq, I got shot by more Iranians in the beginning than I did Iraqis. They were shooting at us all the time. Because they were paying money to go on the border right there with the fence and shooting across the Shat al-Arab and trying to get us across the river. The Tigris Euphrates, and they come down, and then you have that one strip. Well, the Iranians were shooting across at us, and all the time. And but we weren't allowed to talk about that. But they're jihadists, and they just want to kill Americans. You know, yeah. It's a bonus for them. They get bonuses, I guess, when they go to heaven or something, which is ridiculous. You know, it's an Abrahamic religion. You know, we're also part of the Abrahamic religions. Why can't we all get along or something like that? But the whole point of the story is the fact that I didn't shoot right away. And the guy was, I was in trouble. They were like, why did you do that? You brought us all in danger. I was like, no, I was right there. I mean, I was controlled situation. It's not a big deal. And plus, now I met this dude and he's a really good guy and we're getting good intel off it. But the point of the story is about here in America. You walk around America and everybody's fighting. Everybody's talking about phobias. Everybody's calling everybody Nazis. It's all this huge fight. You walk around the street and you're lucky if you don't get beat up if you're late at night. and you're white or black or Asian or this or that, if you're different, if you're an other, and Courtney brought this up, if you get the term othered put onto you, you're going to get it. Because that label is that dangerous label. And that's America right now. And so every time I talk, when I give these speeches out in front of these huge groups of people, and I do that, like 5 to 10 big speeches a year, which is pretty good for me because I'm just living off my disability and stuff, So if I can give a speech and I can make a little money off it, it's a pretty good deal. And I give leadership stuff and I do motivation stuff. But this is one of the stuff that I talk about, is the fact that in America, we're all walking around, we never give anybody a chance. I said, I'm walking in there as an alien and a caveman on the ground with nothing. I gave him 3 seconds. I said, we don't do that for each other. Automatically, if you saw me as a transgender person and you would just want to fight me or you want to do something. And I had team guys start trying to pick fights with me and doing a lot of stuff. And it was just like, I didn't do anything. Well, I actually did do something with all that, and I feel bad about that. But we do that for everybody. For black and white, for Asian, for Latino, for all of it. We're all fighting. We never gave each other even 3 seconds to have a conversation or just look at you and say, hey, you're a human being. I'm not going to walk up to you like this and just start punching you in the face.
Yeah.
How about you give me 3 seconds? And so I ask everybody out there, I say, you'll never, on anywhere around the world, mostly, very rarely will you ever see, somebody as far apart as that alien and that caveman on that rooftop. I gave him 3 seconds. So why can't you do the same? Just give everybody you meet 3 seconds. How about you start with a smile instead of a grimace? There's this one rapper that said his whole life changed when all he did was just change his eyebrows. I can't remember who it was. But he was always like that, and always like trying to be that tough guy, just always like, and you do it, you purposely squint like that, and I can look really mean, and I can go up to you, and I can mad dog you. And most of those rappers are all doing that mad dog stuff. All he did was lift his eyebrows. And he did that, and everybody changed. Everybody started talking to him differently, and he started treating everybody differently, and his whole life changed. And I ask everybody out there, 3 seconds. I was able to do it in the most critical, whack, life and death situations.
Yeah.
And it's not a big thing to ask. Is that we all start smiling a little bit, just like that guy did, and changed his life, just lifted his eyebrows a little bit and started being, how about a smile? How about open your hands up out of them fists and talking to each other? Now, how you see transgender people right now is the way I hope a lot of other people start seeing them. There's a lot of folks out there that are hurting. And the thing is every time you or scowl or you talk to a transgender person because they're looking just whack or whatever's going on, and you make fun of them or do anything like that, what you're doing is you're pushing, you're punching them. And then as soon as they get punched, they're going to sit there and they're going to talk to their trans community and the whole community, and they get hugely love bombed. And all it does is just make the gap wider. So every time you're all out there in public, you aren't smiling with those transgender people, just give them a break. They don't need to be beat up. They're beating themselves up enough. You don't need to beat them up. They're getting beat up by everybody else. So if you can do it, if you're a human, and you have just the slightest bit of compassion, how about you start being a little nicer? How about you give that person a break and start trying to close that gap up a little bit? How about if you're black or white, you give it a break and start closing that gap up a little bit? If you're Latino or Asian or whatever, how about you give it all a break? We're not all racist. Most of us aren't. Most of us are poor, and most of us are rich, and that's the division. It's not, and nothing about race, and nothing about religion, or nothing about gender, nothing about any of that. The only enemies right now is rich and poor. And always been that way. We're the slaves to them, and it's all we are. And so if we start looking at each other and start saying, hey, we're the same. Hey, dude, you're good. You're a good dude. I've talked to you now for 3 seconds. All right? And we shake hands. And it's black and white. There's man and woman, or gay and straight, or trans and not trans. And whatever. When you start closing those gaps up, because we don't shoot, we give them a few seconds, we might start finding out that America's a pretty cool place.
Yeah.
But right now it's a cesspool. Right now it's all fights. And CNN's doing it, and Fox is doing it. And all we're doing is fighting. And we got to stop that. You got to start offering your hand out. When you see that transgender person in that grocery store, just leave them alone. You don't need to make fun of them. They already get enough of that. They get enough of that in the mirror. So please, all I say, if you listen to this whole thing and you make it here to the end, just, would you chill out a little bit? Would you start being a little friendlier to people? I don't hate anybody. I want everybody to do well, And I want everybody to find happiness. I want everybody to find love. I did. I found love and happiness. And I give everybody at least 3 seconds, all the time, no matter what. No matter how they're coming at me, until they're like right there and I start feeling some danger, I'm still trying to give them some time, you know? And I plead with our country right now. We're at the precipice right now of a civil war. And you know it, and I know it, and a lot of people know it. We're at the precipice right now. But we don't have to fall over. We don't have to go there. We don't have to have another civil war. But we're gonna, if we keep going in this direction. And I beg of you, give everybody 3 seconds. That's all I ask.
You're a good fucking human being, man.
Coming in at number 3, MARSOC Raider Cody Alford talks on surviving headshot and having an out-of-body experience during combat.
And these people knew we were coming. They knew that the war was coming. They saw it with the 101st. They saw it with the Air Force. They knew that it was about to get thick. So these dudes made their last stand. And they prepared that battlefield as such. Because at this point, they weren't really going, they were going the aspects of Fallujah. No one said, hey, we're clearing Fallujah. We're going to own it. This didn't happen up to this point until we got there. And that's what this mission was. That's what our overarching mission was, inherent resolve was to do, to take Fallujah. And we find ourselves maneuvering to another building, and it's probably like lunchtime. And there's this 2-story building. It's kind of under construction, pretty incomplete. And I go in there, see the 2-story building. We clear the bottom deck. I work my way up the stairwell, go into the room. We secure it. We set up our hide site. And a hide site back then, being very mobile and agile as we were, our hide site really just meant depth. We needed depth. We'd stand off depth into the room. We weren't setting up blinds. We weren't doing any of that. These windows were unconstructed. Some of them were like massive. So we did the best we could with what we had. And so we got 2 M16s, 2 Berettas, and then 2 sniper rifles. That was all the weapons we had. 2 M16s, 2 pistols, and 2 sniper rifles.
Wow.
The snipers had sniper rifle and a pistol, and the radio operator and myself, we had the M16s. And around this time, it's still early in the day. You hear some pop shots here and there, you hear some radio traffic, but nothing's really crazy. I mean, we saw some shit get blown up. That's crazy. But it wasn't this constant flow of craziness. It was a calm before the storm. Afternoon prayer happens. Once afternoon prayer happens, I'm by the window. That's where we had a radio set up at. And I see movement across the street on the rooftop. I call it like it was like a muffler. It was like a car place. There was a bunch of like car bodies up top and like mufflers, and they were obviously doing like oil and shit at that bottom. You had the big cutouts. It was like a Pep Boys type of place, what I called it. I see these guys run across, armed dudes. And I get the heads up to my crew. Next thing you know, I find myself in a gunfight. And I'm on the left side of this window, and I'm engaging these 2 dudes with guns. They're shooting at us. And then we're just getting fucked up with machine gun fire. Like, it's just spraying down, like to the point where like we're not even engaging the window anymore. We're just gonna eat it. So we're backed off in the window, waiting to hear gaps and lulls in their fire so we can pop back out and engage. And how we started doing it was the radio operator, he would go shoot, and when he would go dry, that's when I would come in. We were playing that whole tag you're it game. Meanwhile, the 2 snipers in my team, they're in the prone position on the ground, because when we're not actively engaging, very accurate sporadic fires coming through our window, and it's like literally just like mowing on top of us. So if you stick your head up, you're done. And these guys are just like, oh shit, did you guys get them? Like they're kind of like laughing. They're like, fuck, they've been here, done that. They've been to the invasion of Iraq. They were in one of them was in Somalia, but it was real. It was a real deal. It was really happening, and we were not participating. We were it. And I remember going back behind the window. I reload another magazine, and as soon as I pop out to shoot, it all goes black. And I remember this like profound exhale that came out of me, and I ended up on the ground. And that's when I had this out-of-body experience. At the time, I had no idea what happened. I thought I was dead. I could see, if you ever play a game or if you ever seen a game where there's like a glitch where you can kind of see like the top-down view. I saw this top-down view of what was going on. I could see the fighters across the street. I could see my body. I could see my point man still shooting. I could see my other teammates on the ground. Like, what the fuck's going on? I just saw
You
this.
had a fucking out-of-body experience in the middle of combat?
Yeah.
Holy shit. I've never heard of that.
Yeah. And what happened was I see this fucking light. I see all these things going on. I'm like, dude, I'm fucking dead. And I just get sucked back into this life. And then I snap and I'm in this fetal position. My body went to this fetal position. And I start to move. And I didn't know if I was convulsing or if it was from my friend kicking me. He's kicking me with his foot. He's in the prone position. Just, hey, wake up. They're like, dude, we thought you were dead. We didn't see any blood. I'm like, what happened? I'm like crying and laughing at the same time. I have no idea what's going on. I got shot right in the helmet. And I didn't know this. And I'm completely out of it. Well, my body was down, fell at the radio, near the radio. They're like, get on the radio and call in support. And I'm like, what the fuck? I'm like, what's going on? You know, I'm trying to figure out where I'm at. And they're like, get on the fucking radio and call for support. I'm like, okay. I'm like, I pick up this fucking handset. And I give like the worst radio transmissions ever. Every other word was break. Warhammer break. This is break. Grim Reaper break. We need break. I'm fucking out of it. And I get it out. I muster it out. I call him like, hey, here's our fucking location. This is what's going on. And I'm getting broken comm. And we're still under fucking fire, under attack. And so my team leader's like, we got to get out of here. So we pack up the radio and we work our way downstairs. And I find myself with a radio operator holding, basically being a shield for him so he can set up the antenna, get communication, and we can get fucking contact. Because we're like, dude, shit's about to get real. And my team leader and my assistant team leader, they're trailing their sniper rifle and they got their pistol out. And I can see kind of the doorway of the building we're in, and then I see this window right in front of me as I'm like peeking out of this bathroom. And it's a very tall window, and I see this head, the top of this head, walk by. I see this turban and everything walk by. I'm like, fuck. Because this is the real fucking thing. So I'm like, fucking tell everyone, shut the fuck up. There's people coming. So my guy stops on the radio communication because it's loud as fuck. We didn't have the best radios and antennas back there, and we're in a concrete building. We're not in a favorable position to achieve communication superiority. And we're somewhat locked down, so we're not even in a true defensive posture. We're almost just waiting for it. And I see this shadow get bigger and bigger into this room. I couldn't see anymore because I wasn't peeking out anymore, but I just saw this shadow figure get bigger and bigger and bigger until this fucking man's face, this adult face, crests the corner, and I just jam my fucking gun into his face. He's got no weapon. I fucking hit him. I'm looking at him. And I'm like, what the fuck do we do? And they're like, oh, he's trying to come in and fucking look at body counts. You know, he's a fucking spy. He's on the lookout. And I'm like, I'm still like semi-throwing up. I'm dizzy. I don't know what the fuck's going on still. I'm semi-conscious to this. But like, I'm trying to process a whole bunch of stuff. And there's a whole bunch of stuff that I need to give that my priority than my own feelings and concerns and thoughts and emotions. One person ends up turning into 7 people. People started to come to our house. No weapons. And we did not know what to do. And I'm like, I'm not going to fucking kill these people that have no guns. Like, at that point in time, I made that decision. Like, I'm not going to... Anyone can kill. And at a fucking young age, before I really learned what that life was about, they weren't a threat to me. And you can't just, I don't know, at the time I didn't do it. So it is what it was. But we didn't have any stuff to hog tie them. We didn't have anything to secure them. All we had was fucking our weapons drawn at them. And we're like, dude, we are so fucked. We got to get the fuck out of here. Because they make a jump on us, we're done. Yeah, we'll take care of a few, but dude, we're outnumbered. Almost 2-1 at this point. Just males. And it was so random. And instead of them walking by, I'm like ushering them in. I'm grabbing them, forcibly bringing them in, because the last thing I wanted them to do was run away and tell people that these 4 gringos are inside this house and they have no idea what's going on. And my team was like, dude, we gotta make a bail for it. We gotta make a run for this thing. And our only option was to hit the road, skirt the fucking town, and just run until we made contact with friendlies. Because we're still getting fucking shot at. It's not as violent now. It's sporadic at this point. But now we have these guys come in and do quality checks. And we have no idea what they are, what they're about, what they represent, who they work for. It's just a lot of weird things that are happening all at once. And so we work ourselves out of this house, and we just started to bound. And we just kept on bounding until we ran into an infantry squad. And we tell them what's going on. We're like, yo, dude, we're in this building over here. We got in contact from across the street. And they're like, oh yeah, we heard that shit. So we showed up and we just started fucking blasting both buildings. We didn't know anything. I'm like, not really putting 2 and 2 together. And I'm like, oh, y'all are blasting that fucking building too. They're like, oh yeah, we're fucking blasting that building. We're blasting that building. And this is new, you know? They didn't know shit. We didn't know shit until we started to like piecemeal these stories together. At the time while that's taking place, I'm throwing up. I'm like, oh my God, what's going on? I get a Motrin and a cigarette. And the doc looks me over, does that little eye sensory check, and he's like, okay. TBI wasn't a thing back then.
Yeah.
No one knew what that shit was. And as we're basically teaming up, sharing stories, they're telling us, oh yeah, so-and-so got shot through and through the ass. Well, little did we know his OIF-1 deployment, he got shot through and through the ass again. So this is now the ass guy. So there's some laughter going on in this like very chaotic place, which is still kindergarten compared to the varsity that Fallujah was truly about. We're like 6-7 hours into the first day in this thing. It's nothing. It's all a cakewalk. And we get tasked that we're like, hey, Delta is doing a mission down the road. We need to go provide sniper support for them. We're providing basically a cordon for them, outer support. And I tell my assistant team leader, I'm like, dude, I'm fucking done, bro. He's like, suck it the fuck up. I'm like, roger that. So we go on this like baton death march to link up, to set up this outer cordon. And I am walking left and right. I'm dragging my fucking gun. He's like, pick up your fucking rifle. I'm like, dude, I am fucking trying. I'm toast at this point. I'm hitting all the dopamine, the adrenaline's wearing off, and like, I just got shot in the helmet. Hell, I don't even know who I got shot in the helmet by at this point, and I don't feel good. I'm getting to the point where I'm physically incapable of actually performing my job. We set up the railroad tracks, and they're like, all right, you're good. We're here. And the next thing you know, I passed out. Passed out these railroad tracks. I remember Delta doing their mission. They're like, yeah, we're good. We appreciate it. They do their shit, obviously super fast, very calculated, very inspiring. And we're there on, squirter control, providing patterns of life. We're there for a little bit, waiting for the next tasking order. Because now we're probably 7 o'clock in the evening. We haven't accomplished shit. We haven't cleared through anything. We've reacted to stuff. And we come back to where we started at the very beginning of the phase line, and my commander's like, hey, I'm gonna send you back. I'm like, I don't want to fucking go. He's like, no, you're gonna go back and get checked out. I'm like, no, I want to stay here with the team. He's like, listen, all we're doing is setting up mortars for the night, and then we're all pulling out in the morning. You have my word. I'm like, okay. So I go back, I get checked out. Eyes around the camper like this. Because now we're like, wait a second. We heard the stories. We saw the wounds. We hear the fucking explosions. Now we experienced it all. And, half this unit is full of new guys. And even the old guys are like, fuck, this is intense. Even for this entry-level stuff that happened, this was nothing. Nothing. This was a drop in the bucket compared to the fucking storm that was coming. And so we're back in the rear. I get checked out. Basically, I was like, we had 2.5 weeks before we went back in the city. And this time the plan was to go back in the city and establish a stronghold. So my team was to support, 2 teams, sniper teams were to support Echo Company, and Echo Company was going to be the anvil of the main element, the main effort. Basically meaning we were going to take over these few buildings, and the other companies, other companies in their battalion were going to start pushing fighters towards us. And so the thought process and the objective was, we'll go firm. We'll use all these adjacent units to basically just like push the hornet's nest into one, vector them into one area, to one kill zone, and then we'll do what must be done. And leading up to this, I'm like, no idea what to think. So we load up again, and this is when I see my first dead guy, like right in front of me. I pull up in a Humvee and I'm eating strawberry applesauce, and I'm like, bro, I love to eat, and I'm definitely gonna get my food in before I gotta go do God knows what I gotta do. And so I'm pulling up because the grunts came in, because at this point we've established overwatch across this bridge. The grunts go in, they clear the strongholds, they get in a fight, and they basically secure these objectives, the main element of this whole operation. And what we're doing is we're just eating rockets, we're eating mortars. I'm dealing with, human shields. I'm dealing with calling in airstrikes. I'm doing all these things, fighting from an Amtrak, basically, while all this is taking place. So this is a very quick evolution, but it seems forever. We link up, and I'm shoving strawberry applesauce in my mouth. And then I see Frank the Falusian laying outside, bloated as shit, guts and glory. And he was a fighter as the Marines pushed in to clear these strongholds. And I'm just like, looking at this fucking dude's brains. I'm like, I finished my food. I'll leave it in the fucking truck. I grab my pack, and I go inside.
Coming in at number 2, Kyle Morgan talks on the Bamako hotel attack and shares with us his vivid memory of this perilous day.
Because this was a big incident, and it's affected your life tremendously. So you say it started at 7:10 in the morning on November 20th?
Yeah.
Let's start right there. Chronological order. Let's stay focused on this topic. And just walk me through the entire day.
Yeah, so my day-to-day was going to the embassy, and showing my face and talking through if there was a meeting. There was weekly and biweekly, different DoD briefs and stuff, but there was no mission for me there. So I just kind of try to look for work, and there's some ranges and stuff, so I was able to start at least, hey, you guys want to train? Anybody want to train here? And just getting, trying to get that going. And because I had all my kit stays in my ready kit bag, and I was able to, it's just like a Rolling Thunder or a North Face duffel roller, and it's got my basic go to war gear, my helmet, guns, my rifle, my pistol, my body armor, my panos, and that's your basic assaulter uniform and stuff. And so I got a phone call that morning, the day of the attack, and the phone call went something like this, where it was someone at the agency wanted to call to notify me about an attack that they had been made aware of that was ongoing, and it was 5 to 8 gunmen shooting up the front of the hotel, the Radisson Blu, in Bamako, Mali, and explosions, and that's what they and launched from what appeared to be embassy driver or embassy vehicles, and that was the situation report, right? And they called me twofold to let me know, and then, but it's not like it was my job to. Really, I was the next door neighbor of the deputy, and they couldn't get a hold of him. So they're like, hey, can you also go check on so and so? We can't get a hold of him. Can you help us out? But when I'm knocking on the door of my next door neighbor, the deputy chief. He opens the door and he's on the phone in underwear. And he's just like picking lint out of his belly button. And he looks at me. He's like, "Oh, hold on, I'm on the phone." I'm like, "No, hold on. There's the attack's going on. There's an attack going on right now." And I don't know exactly where the hotel is, but I know it's close, and I can hear gunfire. So I'm like, that's definitely close. And it was about 3/4 of a mile or less from my house, which are like townhomes almost. And he's like, "I'm on the phone." "Yeah, I know. I'm on the phone with some of our guys in the hotel right now, like staying there." To me, it made no sense why that hotel was even on there as a good place to stay. When, like, looking at it, like the reason they chose that hotel is not only for the density of like people, Westerners. If your mission was to kill as many Westerners as you can, you could throw a stone from across the street and hit the front of the huge front glass door windows, because it's a soft target in the sense that it doesn't have any standoff. It's not in depth.
Yeah.
Like, they have all these security apparatuses and mechanisms, but like barrier, like from a vehicular assault, but it doesn't stop people from driving by and reaching out and touch someone. He's like, "Yeah," it just kind of gives me and I'm like, "Hey man, like, give me their room numbers, their cell phone numbers." Like, he's like, "Why?" He's like, "Because I'm gonna go get them." And he goes, like, record stops, like, "What do you mean? You do that?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm going there right now."
Yeah, motherfucker. There are Americans.
That's
in
a
there.
start point for me. I was like, "Thank you, please."
Jeez.
Now I have a room number, cell phones, and now I can get on the horn with them while I'm maneuvering en route, absorbing everything as it's happening, and processing to come up with a plan of action to execute. Moving to the hotel, like, we kind of drove around and got into the front instead of driving right past it. Kind of leapfrogged around, dismounted, and then kind of walked up, patrolled up.
What are you carrying? What are you wearing?
I had just a t-shirt on, the civilian t-shirt, and like Prana, because they're stretchy, pants.
Nice.
Sometimes men wear stretchy pants. It's a Nacho Libre reference. But and then just like some shit kickers, dude, and like, good thing they were pretty sturdy.
Plates, helmet.
Yeah, so like my regular like JPC with plates, helmet, HK 416 with my normal accoutrement, and then my Surefire RC2 suppressor and stuff, like, and then my Panos, but no more. Like, I didn't have breaching tools, I didn't have like bangs, or I didn't have all the extra little bits of kit. That would have been really nice to have. This one American just like called and said that he's trapped in a room on fire, and he's hiding under one of the banquet tables, and they're shooting over top of him. "Please come get me, come help me." So between those two calls, there's a lot of noise, and I'm like, just filter through this, like, which one is the most life? That one. So threat to life. I'm like, let's focus on this one real quick. We're going in to get this Terry, the first American, in that room, the banquet room, because it was on fire, and they were imminent life threat, right? Threat to life of Americans. I was like, all right, that's now the pressing start point for me. And the fact that they knew I wasn't going to go through the front doors. They shot the whole fucking place up, like, going in, and they chased a bulk of the people into the breakfast room, and that's where they ended up focusing their attention to get the most
Kills.
from the timing, right? So like 7:10 in the morning, that's breakfast time. To the time I entered, it was about 7:45, but I entered through a side door. I had to basically break into a side entrance, service entrance or whatever, and then work my way through all these conference area, big, huge rooms on the outer perimeter of the building or of the hotel. And I was able to, that opened up into the main foyer, where it was like, if you think about embassy suites, where it's like an atrium, where almost 3-sided atrium with floors all the way, it was like 7 stories, and you go into the atrium and it's like 2 spiral glass staircases kind of going all the way up on each side. It's like super exposed, and it's just like the most like overly stimulating snapshot I'd have ever taken, because I was absorbing all of it out front and like everywhere around me, because every corner I was the guy up front. Everything was sensory overload, and it was the smells, the sounds, the fire alarms, the smoke, the haze, the smells of death in Western dress. It was something that my brain was like, what? It was like short-circuiting a little bit, because I had become so desensitized to life and death, but in certain environments, and certain dress. And I think that's a part of a self-defense mechanism. But for one, I didn't get a chance to prepare my mind, body, or spirit for violence, which is like planning contingencies and rehearsals, and you do that with each other and a team and a troop, and then you go out and do these things, and they're like incredible, but you buy down risk with a collective experience and rehearsed like plans of action that you just in place in the unknown, right? And I was just in reactive mode, and I was fully exposed, my mind, body, and spirit was, and it was just awful to see.
How many bodies were you seeing? I mean, how many people were killed?
Well, a couple. The first few were just kind of like sporadic in the foyer area, and then.
Did you know any of them?
No. No, they killed 23 people total, Westerners, to include one American citizen. Anita Datar was her name. And I know that name, and I'll never forget it, her face, and because she was the last one, I needed to get confirmation on. Like, I went back to her room probably 5 times that whole day, and cleared it again and again, and then I was able to confirm that she was one of the killed during the initial. They chased them through the breakfast room, people, and then they set that room on fire, and then just were stacking furniture. They were trying to burn the place down, and then they chased everyone through the kitchen, and that's where Terry got left behind, the American that was in that room that they had set on fire, and he wouldn't move. He was just like froze in that, wherever he was in that room. But I kicked the doors in to that room, and I mean, even making it to that floor to get there was this big. I was like, you cover 10 to 2, you 10 to 2, like anyone. I'm like, fucking pull security and cover me while I move, because I'm about to make a real big movement, because I had to run out and get on this spiral glass staircase and just mad dash it, like to get up to the 2nd floor to hold up and then bring them up. And then I went in and just went right into kicking these French doors in, and it was like a cloud. The whole room was full of just fire and smoke, and I just ran in there, and it fucking floored me, because I was like, well, I can't breathe. Imagine that. But like this mindset of like, it's a self-correcting problem, man, but like, it just kept getting lower and lower to the point where now I'm on my belly, like with my gun, like low crawling, gun light, yelling his name. And I'm like, wait a minute. First of all, no one's coming. I can't see any further. And I don't know which way is the fucking door I just came from, because I can't see. So I was able to like crawl the fuck back out. And then I was like, this isn't working. At that point, I was able to, for one, like know which direction he was, because it's a huge room. And then it lifted enough to where I was able to get deep into there, and then like just pull him out by the, like he just looked like death, man. Like he had talked to death, and he said, nah, hold up. And I carried him out, and loaded him up and in a car. Like that's where it was integral for having like the RSO and the relationships they have, because they were working the embassy like drivers and stuff, like shuttles. Kyle, what do you need? I'm like, stand by. I'll let you know what I got. And then eventually it was like, I need my fucking boys. I can't do this alone. And that empowerment, that trust is like, it allowed me to be effective, to be agile, to make decisions on the ground. And what I talk about is tomorrow problems, like I watched happen, where the Marsoc cats were just being called every 5 minutes, man, on their cell phones. Like, what are you guys doing? Like, you shouldn't be in there. You're gonna get in trouble. Like, you're gonna ruin the platform for our source operations. And I'm like, hang the fucking phone up right now. I'm like, tell that motherfucker that's a tomorrow problem, and I need you here right now. Because what they're doing and what they did was cast seeds of doubt into any of the decisions that they were making. And if all those decisions were resting on the fact that they trusted me, and I wasn't in their command, but the moment someone from their command, 12 hours away, mind you, says, well, you guys shouldn't be seen running around in full body armor. That's kind of like, oh, you're going to ruin this platform. I'm like, first of all, you can go fuck yourself. Second of all, that's a tomorrow problem. We'll deal with it. But there's lives like that can still be saved. Like, where the fuck, what planet are you in or on, you know? But they just casting those seeds and planting seeds into somebody that I needed to be stay switched on and with me, like with me in this moment. And as much as I tried to like say, fuck that, we'll deal with that later, started stepping for like steps, become an arm's distance away, so then I was just like, holy fuck, I feel like I'm like flat out alone in here. Even though you're moving with me, you're not where you're not here. You're not with, you're too far behind. And then here, check right the fuck out. I was able to form a list where I have, which I wanted to show you, but I started forming a list on just some scratch paper I found on the ground because I didn't have a pen and paper on me like a good soldier. I had everything else, but I just found a piece of paper. And can you hand me that bag? I do want to show you this because it's important. Yeah, so I grabbed a scratch piece of paper from the street and then like started writing down like names and room numbers in my excellent handwriting. And somehow it survived. Like, it's like super barely hanging on, but this is the list that I started to form, and it started to kind of, these are room numbers and names of Americans that they were unaccounted for. And you can see that Anita Datara was on that list pretty early, and I was able to get to her room pretty quick, but she wasn't there. And then
what are the scratch names off?
After I rescued them. Like going to the room and confirming that they are that person. And I think I kicked in like 54 hotel doors, man.
No shit.
Yeah, it was like, the master key right here. I'll give the SEALs that, man. That whole like mule kick, that's where it's at.
Works.
It does. It saves so much energy. And it was like comical watching people trying to, even with breaching tools, I was like, what are you doing? What is that thing? The French, when they came, I was like, I'm like, step aside, please. I got really tired. Some of them were like tying bed sheets together on like the 6th floor. Like this, my man had like 3 sheets tied together, and he had a good 30, 40 feet of just drop. Before, it didn't even touch the ground. And I was like, first of all, don't do that. I'm like hand and arm, because I don't know if you're gonna, like I said in English, but I don't speak French, and who knows if what languages they understood or spoke. But the pointy, like me saying no, and then having people like relay it. But I'm like, don't do that. For one, that's not gonna hold up. And I was like, just barricade yourself in your room and don't answer the door for anyone. It was like, all right, if I find the closest stairwell to this bank of rooms, I'm just gonna go right up this stairwell, because there wasn't an outside fire escape or roof access, because I wanted to get down and work my way from the top down. But I did a whole sweep around the whole hotel, and there was no fire escapes. So I was like, I guess I'm going. I didn't want to go up the spiral staircase, so I went to like the fire stairwell, fire red stairwells, and went to the lower floor. Like, so if it was 731, 26 and 18, I went to the stairwell that was going to get me closest to it when I popped out on that floor, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I did that, and then when I got to the 7th floor, I couldn't get in the door from the inside because it was a crash bar, emergency exit. So I didn't have the tool or anything to like pop it from the inside, so I actually went down a couple floors and then went over, and then that led me into this like outside area of the hotel. But to me, I was just still in the hotel. But at that point, I had went around to the back side of it where I went up that stairwell, and this whole wing of the hotel wasn't even on. It was like additions that they made, and it wasn't even on like the emergency exit plan or anything, like, and which I took with me to capture that how fucked up this hotel was. For one, like, this is what you have briefing on the wall here. Like, there's parts of the hotel that aren't even on this, like additions, the whole wings, and just so chaotic. And as I'm going up that other stairwell in between the 3rd and 4th floor is when like I'm about here in the clearance on the stairs, and like running upstairs and then like trying to clear, and then the gunmen are like coming down the stairs, and they're on the landing, and then we like lock eyes, and I stare down his muzzle from 5 feet away, like
That close?
Yeah, he's like right here, and I just go, oh fuck, but I look through his, like, beyond the muzzle and into his eyes. I saw a change in his demeanor. I saw a shift because he was not expecting to see me. Big American flag, panos on my head. He's like, holy shit, without saying it. And this is all like very rapidly, but the next thing through my mind was, well, that's me. I'm fucking dead. And he cracks the first round off, and I black out for a split second. I mean, I got knocked out. Like, I thought I was in heaven or hell. And I just, like, it's all like a fog and haze, but like I'm like stumbling down the stairs, and it's like almost like things are moving in slow motion, and I'm like shooting back, and he shoots like 5 more times, and they all hit like just in this concrete stairwell right around, like pop pop pop, like right, like Samuel L. Jackson, man, Pulp Fiction. And so for me, the divine intervention piece, like, I just couldn't see it for what it was, and I just saw red, and I went running back up the stairs and yelled, and I actually cussed him out, called him a bunch of basic ass bitches, and I don't know where that came from, but I screamed it at the top of my lungs. And then he yells Allah Akbar at me and fucking pops the primer on a grenade. And I hear that. It's very audible. Time delay pop, like a Russian style grenade, the pineapple looking one. And I've heard it a ton in Afghanistan, and I know, so I was able to yell grenade and get out of the way, relative cover. And that thing just bopped the fucking shit out of me. And somehow I was still, there was moments of blacking out right there for a second, or knocked, like, unconsciousness, but then coming back to, and it's just, my teeth were just fucking like loose and dangling, but I was just just holding them in place, because I was like, I'm the only person that could stop these motherfuckers right now. And when they threw another grenade on me, I was like, fuck, I don't have what I need to deal with, like, to deal with this. I can't. They have the position of tactical advantage in this stairwell, was like, go get any Malian security forces that you can find now and get them up here. And I said that very calmly just now. I was yelling it. And, you know, basically whoever they could muster up there, I was just going up and down the line. Like, this is your fucking country. These motherfuckers are right here. I was just going straight up patent speech on them. Like, and I was like, you get a fucking shield. They don't speak English. And I'm just like English fucking screaming, and like they're like, we. I'm like, you understand this, you know? And I was just so fucking, for one, I was hurting. So I just used overwhelming violence of action to mask any of the pain I was feeling right in that moment. You take this shield and go over there, and I basically placed this dude. I'm like, go over there, and like, he got to the base of the stairwell, and like, they took one shot, popped the shield from up here, and he drops it and takes it to the house. He's like, I served my country, see you later. Like, he was gone. And this was a Malian, all right, next, you know, like, get the fuck over here. And then this guy shows up with a gas mask on his head and a pistol. And he's like, I got you. He didn't say that, but he gave me the look. And I was like, all right, don't let them fucking move. And then I cleared the rest of that wing, you know, kicking in every door I could and freeing not just Americans, but anyone at that point. I'm like, this is now, I've locked them into a position. They couldn't go any, like, higher because it was a condo that they were trying to find. What I found out later, they had some pocket litter. They were sterile. Like, they didn't have, like, comms. They had comms, but they were burner phones, and, like, they had some pocket litter that had the room numbers of, like, in the 6 series, like 600, whatever, a bank. And that was where the Air France crew was staying. So, like, Air France would fly in daily there. So their flight crews would stay in a certain wing every time. And they were trying to get over, just like I was, to the certain wing or bank of rooms. And, you know, our paths crossed very early in this process, and they were no longer able to. It went from, you know, killing and making as much of a impact as they wanted to or could, to survival and barricading themselves. French came from the assault force from Burkina Faso, the neighboring country, and one of my old teammates that was embedded with them, helping them, you know, target and do things. And he hopped on a bird with them. There was like 12 of them, but when they showed up, it was like almost 1 p.m.
Holy
I ran into the stairwell with them at like...
It's like 6 hours later.
Yeah, it was like 8 something. I kicked in one door in that wing, and there was a dude in Western dress just like with his shot right through his head. Like, and I was like, look back at the door, I was like, there are holes in the door? Like, how the fuck did he get hit? And after I cleared the room, I was like, there's no one in here. And because when I kicked it in, like the deadbolt and the throw latch both broke off the door. So like I cleared all of it, right? And cleared it out of the door frame. And I was like, it really like bothered me, not just the fact that he was like, obviously, you know, one of the people that were killed, innocent people that were killed, but like, even in that, like, I was like, this doesn't make sense. Like, why, you know, from a physics perspective, I was like, wait a minute. And I found out, you know, because I went back with the FBI, almost in an unhealthy manner of times, to do my own sensitive site exploitation, but really trying to make sense of it all. Put a suit on and went back in there like every day. They were knocking on doors, and then if anyone that would answer their door, they would just, like, even just through the people, not people, but the throw latch still engaged, the hotel, right? So it like shuts in itself, and once you let it go, I mean, they would knock lightly, and this one guy, he answered the door, but just stuck his head, you know, through the crack. He was like looking through the crack, and they just smoked him right there through the crack in the door. And when that troop came from the Burkina Faso, like, I finally was just like, all right, let's fucking go. Like, and I was like, hey, here's the deal. Like I went over there and was like to the commander. I'm like, who's the fucking charge here? Who's in charge here? I'm like, here's the thing. Like they're right here. We got them. I got them pinned down. Like I can take you right to it. They were like, oh yeah, you come with us, but just stay in the back. I'm like, Roger that. I've been up front all fucking day. I'll stay in the back with you boys. Let's go. And then I'm like, you know, doing all what's going on? It's taking so long. Like it's all this commotion up front, and I'm, you know, now I'm like, they shouldn't be. Like there's gunshots, and I'm like, who the fuck are they fighting with right now? And it was one of the Malian, like security force dudes, like shot one of the fucking French like in the top of his helmet. That was scary as shit. Like they're down in a Salter, and they're like, oh, you guys want to intermingle in the teams now? And I'm like, Roger that. And I just kept getting further. Then I'm like in the team. Just flowing with them, and that's a testament to like the ability to not be so like indoctrinated and to just, it took me 2 rooms to kind of like adapt to their techniques and not get in the way, because at that point it's like I could like fall on my sword here. You guys are doing this all fucking wrong if I wanted, but not that they were. I was just extremely grateful to be a part of any sort of like competent assault force when my boys were like, they were getting spun up in North Carolina, and the guys in Germany were like loading in a C-130, like, but they were 10, 12 hours away, 18 hours away. The American that was killed was in a service elevator area that a group of them, like 15 of them, like if they would have just kept going, went right, like a turn, and then freedom down a hallway, exit, freedom. They flew that kitchen into this service elevator, and there's bodies in the elevator, in between the doors, like closed on them, and then outside of it, just all executed from like point blank range. And you can't unsee that. The smell. I gave it all. I died in that stairwell.
How did that day end? When they got to the barricade?
We killed them eventually at like, we ended up like bounding around and coming in through like a rooftop thing, and then crawling down into this condo and locking them down from underneath and then below. And I mean, I think the French threw everything they had, like flashbang and like concussive grenades, but it was just flying right past them. And they had this corridor where they could just spray down this hallway, and then they had the stairwell. So they had them locked down. And so we couldn't come up from underneath. Like, we had the dude the French dude was holding the shield guy. That was his job. I'm like, you're the fucking shield dude. And I was like, and he was like this young, probably 20-something-year-old kid. And I remember this because like he got shot, I think through his, like, broke his hand, and then maybe got like shot through his, like the superficial part of his arm or whatever, so bandaged him up. But I was like, he got within a foot of this corner where the barricaded guys were in this storage closet, just to get close enough, but took like 7 rounds in this fucking shield from a foot away, and was balling after that. And the guys weren't dead. They threw, and because the guy behind him was able to get close enough to throw on an actual like offensive like frag grenade on top of these cats, which was this huge faux pas of like, you don't bring frags on a hostage rescue, man. And I'm like, well, what about in this case? So I know that we came back, and I was able to train. I came back and was able to like bring the tactical lessons learned to change the way we think and train. I mean, that's my legacy there. It's not like, to make an impact on that type of organization, I think is massive. And it's not like, oh, look at me. It's just like, we evolve as a fighting force, and that's why it's so capable. But as a collective, I still stayed in the hotel for another 3 hours, clearing the rest of the hotel, like room by room. And I didn't say, it was like 6 p.m. when I called, objective secure. One American killed confirm, her body, because I got a physical description from the country team, and she was one. Anita Tatar was one of the ones that were initially killed in that service elevator area. The country team's there just like waiting for me to brief them, all circled up. And I'm like, what's up? Like, tell us all about it. I'm like, okay. And people just looked at me differently after that, And I was like, what the fuck did you think this was? There's not very many of us. My operator number is 965 since 1978. That's not me bragging. That's me just to conceptualize how small we are.
Coming in at number 1, Tom Satterly talks on the day Black Hawk Down happened and recounts going on the worst mission of his life.
I thought, well, I'm gonna slash the. That wasn't first. And I remember standing there waiting to exfil. I'm laughing. I got the bag of cash on my shoulder. We're talking, man. I hope we make it back for dinner. We're still cracking jokes. And then that Ranger's neck just opened up right there, and he kind of fell over. You can see a hole in the metal gate. And I'm like, oh shit. The medics jump on him, start grabbing up his neck, and I'm like, oh, this is growing into something worse. I remember getting nervous, but still like, we're going to be home for dinner, right? Just joking around. And then another RPG, and I remember looking up and seeing it hit the helicopter, the tail of the helicopter.
You saw it hit.
Yeah, and it just started auto-rotating. I'm like, oh, man, no, And it crashed a little bit northwest of us, or northeast of us, and devised another quick plan, all right? Calling up higher, whatever team leader's doing at the time. I know now he was calling up higher, getting, where's it at? Guide me to it. Get the convoy to go to it. The mission had just changed. Now we got to get to that helo. Load up on both sides of the streets, put out
Did
the
you know
wounded.
the pilots?
Know them? No.
Okay.
I know who they were, yeah. And their names a little bit, yeah. But no, I wouldn't say I knew them.
Okay.
I used to say I knew everybody. I'm friends with everybody. Now I've learned that you're an acquaintance. We're friends if you know my kids' middle names or something. And then we're close. Back then, well, we're all one. But I couldn't say that I knew them. And I remember lining up on both sides of the streets and heading that way. And just moving in a column both sides of the streets, cross covering for each other. And every intersection we crossed on our way was just a hail of gunfire. I remember
Every
looking
single one, huh?
Yeah, every single one. And they were paralleling us, trying to beat us to the crash site. And so we knew we had to speed up, so we gave up security by using speed. And every intersection, just a hail of bullets. You had to just kind of wait and then go. And I remember going past one, there weren't people at it, and I was kind of watching around the corner, waiting for other people to cross, and then this donkey comes walking across the street. Just standing there, like he's just chilling. And then we started taking fire, and I realized they're shooting from behind the donkey. You start seeing feet behind the donkey. I'm like, all right, you got to drop the donkey to drop the dudes. I remember shooting the donkey, and it took off. And then those dudes are standing there with their, guns in their hands, like, uh-oh, donkey's gone. I'm like, man, they'll do anything to get at us, And I remember calling my team, or one of my friends over. I go, look at this thing, man. What's this donkey doing? Just standing there. He goes, I don't know, it's crazy. And then, we get, taking fire, so we realized what was happening. Kept moving down the street and finally turned to head north. And we had a couple blocks to go, a couple Somalian blocks to go, which is just, not that far, probably 50 yards, maybe 100 yards at the most. And I remember turning the corner. The other team took the other couple teams took the far side of the street, and they were in the lit side. I think the sun was setting, on this side now, and it's lighting up the east side of the street. So we weren't in as much, and they were taking more fire. And from up near the crash site, I remember my 2IC jumping out in the middle of the street, and I jumped out with him with my M4, and he shot the 203 down and literally hit this building. This little shack just past the crash site where one dude was in. And he just jumped out and boom. It was a lucky shot, and he knows it too. And it was one of those that hit it, and I was like, holy shit. And then one guy came running out, and we're sitting there engaging. But before I had walked out in the middle of the street with him, I remember looking over, and I saw Earl and his team shooting up the street. And when I looked back, there were two people dragging Earl into their building. And I didn't see him get shot or anything. I just thought, what happened to Earl? Did he fall down? Earl got killed instantly. Shot right through our plastic Protect helmets, so we could be faster, right? Lightweight Protect skateboard helmets. We ended up pushing further down the street, worked our way down, and I remember Paul Howe was a team leader. He was angry. I remember his anger. And he had ended up on our side of the street somehow, and his team was on the other side. And we got down to the crash site, and our team ended up being the furthest north and the furthest west of all the fighting. We were that corner, with the crash site being here, and everyone else being this way down the street, injured and wounded, and the Rangers and whatnot. I remember Paul coming over just pissed off and screaming, and it's just all screwed up and blah, blah, blah. We got to take this house. I'm like, all right, Paul, but chill, bro, chill. I mean, this is, you gotta be under. And he kicks the door and we go in, it's full of women and one guy again. We end up corralling them all into the living room, the kids in the living room, and then this one guy handcuffed in the living room. We end up dominating that house, and that's where we stayed the rest of the night. Had a carport with a little metal roof covered, sliding into the carport. For some reason, it seemed backwards to me, with an entrance, the kitchen off to the right, the living room off to the left, a little bathroom just off the kitchen, and then 3 bedrooms. Tiny, tiny little home. But it was right on the corner of the crash site, so we just occupied every room, pulling guard out every window. I didn't know anybody was killed or wounded yet. By then, before we even made it to that crash site, the rescue bird had come in. And they had fast rope. They took an RPG right to the rotor blades as they were fast roping into the crash site. And so they ended up, pilot held that beautifully. They ended up fast roping all in and then trying to secure the crash site before we even got there. And before we even got there, the Somalians had gotten there and they were overwhelming the helicopter. So Dan Bush had jumped out and ran out of cover range and ran around the corner with a saw to dispatch as many Somalis as he could to defend the crash site. But he, in turn, got killed doing that as well. Got shot doing that. So another guy runs out and grabs him. Another sniper ran out and grabbed him. And as he was dragging him out of the way, a little bird came and landed in the intersection with the pilot shooting MP5s out the window to help them. He got shot through the neck, pulling Dan to the helo to put him in. And he tried to get back in the fight. And they wouldn't let him. They made him get on the bird as well, and they exfilled both of them, and Dan ended up dying of his wounds. And I didn't know any of that till the end.
These are all your guys?
Yeah. And so that's how the night started. No water, no night vision. We're set up poorly on an undominated intersection with a crash site. And they just kept coming. They just kept coming all night. They kept trying to probe our weaknesses, coming up the alleyways, tearing down our buildings with RPGs, just picking away at the walls. And then you'd hear the helicopters calling in, the ISR above, telling us, hey, there's a convoy of vehicles moving in, we're going to send the little birds over and see what's happening. But you can't do anything until they actually enter the area. But they were trucking people in from everywhere. Found out years later, Al-Qaeda was training there at the time.
How many guys do you estimate
Coming at us?
coming at you that night?
Maybe 500 to 1,000.
500 to
Yeah.
1,000?
I mean, they just kept coming. I
And
know
how
I heard
many-
reports that who knows these reports are real, that the hospital had filled up that night, from wounded from them. But they would load them up truck after truck and pipe them in. And who really got the most kills were the little birds. Coming and just keeping them off of us. I mean, danger close rockets right across the street. Guys were out in the streets underneath cars, and the brass from the miniguns would fall on them and freak out. I mean, it was funny what happened to me. I was freaked out. It's hot and it's heavy and it hurts. And you think you're getting shot. You don't know what it is. And it's like, oh. And then the morning when the 10th Mountain showed up to help pull us out, same thing happened to them. They're all freaking out. I'm like, don't worry about it, man. That's old school shit. That happened earlier in the night. But yeah, it just kicked off to where wave after wave after wave.
I mean, how close?
Me to you.
That close?
Yeah.
Same position.
Yeah. They'd make it that close. At one point in the night, me and another buddy were laying down at the gate, facing the crash site, open carport gate. And from this direction are all the Rangers. To the right and to the left is the bad guy territory. And 2 local Somalis with AKs over their shoulders, just walking, talking, came from that direction, the Rangers' direction, and walked right in front of us. I looked at my buddy, he looks at me, I'm like, he goes, Oh, well. You know, and once they got out of line of sight from the team across the street, he opened up, I opened up, and one dropped, and the other one ran around the corner, you know, and then probably died too a little bit later. But it's like, the nerve, man. Did they forget we were here? I mean, and how did they get here from all the way down there, right? Who didn't shoot them from down there? They would come up. I was sitting on a window, on a bed, poking my weapon out of a window covered with bars at a house this far away, looking at wooden shutters to another window. And I could hear people rustling around in there with weapons, and you could hear them charging weapons and talking. And I just shoot through the wooden shutters, and then you hear them screaming and run out, and then you hear them later talking again. And I know they were going to open that window and do something. You know, we're literally 3 feet apart. And I just keep shooting through the wooden shutters. So I sat there for a while. And at one point, I heard this clicking and dragging. And I'm like, I hear something. And I look down, and there's a Somalian on his hands and knees with an AK in front of him, crawling up to my window. And I tried to get my M4 out there, and I couldn't get it out there, and I pulled my 45 out, stuck my hand through the bars, and was aiming it literally at the top of his head. And I pulled the trigger, and it was so full of sand from the rotor wash, the hammer falls halfway, and it just sticks there.
You gotta be shitting.
And I'm like, what the fuck? Recock it, safe, lay it on the bed. I'm like, I pulled out one of those little Austrian grenades, those little ones, and pulled the pin. And I showed it to the guy standing in the door. I was watching in the window. He's like, I'm like, he just steps in the hallway, and I stuck my hand out the window again and looked. I remember dropping it. And I remember him looking up like, what was that, you know? And start to move to get up, and I just laid on the bed. And that thing went off, and the whole ceiling was just covered. And I remember this smell of burnt hair. And then somebody came in screaming, what was that? You know? And instantly I'm in trouble, right? And the guy at the door goes, he just threw a grenade. And I go, oh no, that was a flashbang. I lied, right, about it because I thought I was in trouble. And he's over there going, no, it was a grenade. It was a grenade. I go, you're right, it was a grenade. Look at this shit. You know, look at the ceiling, man. What do you think I threw a grenade for? And then I'm defensive, right? And I thought, man, you know, it didn't even hit me then. I thought, I finally got to use a grenade was my thought, you know, other than basic training. I got to use a grenade. And then they kept switching positions, so you'd stay awake. And I ended up being in the carport, standing up on the hood of a car to the same alleyway that I just blew that dude up in. And I could hear more rustling around. And I'm leaning against that metal roof that slopes towards me, but it drops off in the alleyway. And I'm thinking, I could slide a grenade up that way, right? And it just fall right over. And I remember thinking, but if I don't make it, it'll slide back down to us, right? So I'm like, all right, I got to really chuck this grenade. I remember having this conversation with myself, like, if I don't do this right, I'm going to frag the whole command element and my team who are in the carport taking care of 2 Rangers, which I'll get to that story. So I ended up sliding that grenade really hard up on there, and I think it hit the wall and fell down and blew up. I don't know what happened. But I ended up doing a lot of suppressive fire, you know, because looking around these corners, you could hear people. I'm just shooting, skipping off walls, trying to keep people away versus just trying to kill people. Back in the day, you don't shoot unless you have a target, right? And it's a threat. Then it was, to me, then it turned into suppressive fire, just to keep people away. But those, you know, those 2 Rangers in the court, they were out on the corner of the building, pulling security to the west with a saw, and there was 2 of them, and it was off the corner where one of my friends was pulling guard out the window at the crash site. I remember I was the one position now that had a free float. I didn't have to have a window for the time, and that was your break, you know. And so I'm walking around going, hey, you need water, and I'm pouring water out of flower pots, you know, because we don't have water. Pouring them into canteen cups and little pipe dripping out of the wall. And I'm like, whatever, man, we're eating iodine pills. Here's an iodine pill, now drink it, you know, because we're so thirsty. And I remember grabbing his canteen, and I turned around, walked out the room, and I turned back around to ask him a question with my 2IC sitting in a couch in the hallway, like right here. And I turned to look at my friend, and I'm like, I started asking a question, the room just explodes. And things hit, you know, gravel wall parts hit me in the face, and I'm just standing there, looking in the room, which is now on fire. And my 2IC's like, what was that? I go, I don't know. You know, just like conversational. And then it hit me and I screamed RPG and I went running into the room because, you know, Jake was in there. And I remember looking, I mean, you couldn't see. And I remember looking down and I saw what I thought was his leg. And I went to pick it up and it was this concrete beam that was on top of him. And I threw it off and somebody else, Rick, came in to help as well. And I remember him just coming up, just groaning for air. He had all the air knocked out of his lungs because he was leaning against that wall that the RPG hit. And that wall had dissipated the effects of the RPG other than the explosives. And it just kind of knocked his wind out of his lungs, knocked him over, and that hurt for a while, and then left a huge hole in our house, staring right at the crash site. I remember pulling the door shut, thinking, man, they can see right in here now. And I saw a glow coming out from underneath the door, like pretty soon, and I opened it up, and the couch was on fire. Because that RPG motor had snapped off. It was such a short distance that it was flying around the room still, and then stuck under the couch and caught it on fire. So now I'm running outside trying to put this, I'm filling flower pots up again, and I'm running back in and pour it on the couch, and I'd go out and throw up because of this, you know, the noxious, whatever that couch is made of in Somalia. Go back in there, pour more water on it, go back out and throw up from the smell, go back in and pour water and finally put it out. And I remember thinking, we have a huge open hole now. The next one's going to hit the living room, right? This wall stopped. The next one's going to hit the living room. So I ended up putting mattresses up on every wall. And when I pull a mattress, I'd lean it up against the wall, which everybody's making fun of me at the time, you know. And I remember coming back when the house got hit with another RPG, with another one of my teammates sitting there. The mattress had protected him from all the wall flying in. I remember walking in going, see, I told you, man. A few choice words. But those two Rangers that were outside that wall, I had to run out and drag them in. And I drug the Hispanic kid in. I don't even remember his name. And the other guy, somebody else drug in the other cat, working on them. They're tore up pretty good. And the medics are working on them, and I'm just helping. What do you need? And cut his pants off of the Hispanic, and his nuts were gone pretty much. He's got shot in the butt, shrapnel or whatever, and it kind of just blown, and he was bleeding out. And I remember putting the mask trousers on him, airing him up, trying to air him up and get the pressure on him, and after packing, you know, him with gauze. And then another teammate, another team member from across the street come over, anybody need any help? And he looks down before I got the mask trousers on, he's like, oh man, you're missing your nuts. And I'd been lying to that dude because he's Hispanic and he's wanting to start a big family, you know. And I go, wait a minute, you know, because they don't teach you that. You don't walk up and go, oh, that's horrible. You walk up and go, you're going to be all right, buddy, right? You give him hope. I've been giving him hope, and he walked up, just blurted it out like, oh, shit, man, you know? And that guy starts freaking out. What do you mean? What do you mean? I go, dude, you're good. You're still good, you know? You had one left, and you only need one, you know? And he ended up being good. He ended up being good down the road. And the other guy had his whole heel blown off. Still in his boot.
Still in
his boot, and you could see the whole boot leather torn in his heel. It was just disgusting. And I remember just putting a air boot on him, boot on and everything, you know, packing that, put an air boot on him, and they were good the rest of the night, really, you know, just monitored them. Across the street, a lot of people saw the movie. If you see the movie Black Hawk Down, they're working on the guy's femoral artery, kept slipping away, they couldn't get it. That was right across the street. Horrible for the medics that worked on him. Years later, they talked about it. The fact they just kept trying to save him. We didn't have blood. We didn't have, you know, IVs. We didn't have anything to give this kid who just slowly died, you know, just bled out with the medics doing everything they could, cutting him down, trying to clamp off his arteries. It just was too far gone. All of which I didn't know, you know, until later. So we got this big hole in our roof, you know, I got people creeping up, and it just continues all night long. Just all we could do is switch positions, keep firing, we ran out of ammo. Didn't have any water.
Completely.
Ran out of ammo. At one point, I had a knife on the bed, thinking, all right, you know, this is the day. And I remember thinking, I'm going to do as much damage as I can before I'm gone, you know. And that's when the team leader runs in, and I could hear the convoy in the city, the 50 cals, RPGs, you know, the dish gets going off, and you knew the differences. And it'd get louder and louder, and you're like, and then it'd get softer and softer, you know, as they went around and kept getting blocked by burning tires, and it just kept getting blocked from us. And team leader came in, I'm like, hey, are they going to make it? You know, and he was like, no, I don't know. And that's when I had my knife on the bed. And I remember thinking, I was terrified. And that's when it all got better. When I reserved and relented to the fact that I was going to die, it got better. There was nothing to be fearful of anymore. I knew my destiny, and that's all I wanted to do. You know, and back then we didn't have speedballs. We didn't resupply. We were in and out, you know? That's all we did. So back in the rear, they're packing boxes, they're putting stuff together, and then the helicopter flies over and hovers right over us. Start pushing ammo out, water jugs out, they're exploding, the ammo's exploding, and rounds are going everywhere in the dirt. And then they take fire from the house directly to our right, 2nd floor. We didn't know anybody was in that building. And that's when another friend got shot in the face. He was eye level with that guy hovering in the helicopter shot, and he was one of the snipers. That's when he got shot in the face. He lived through that. And then being the young guy, with the youngest guy being injured, me being the youngest guy that's not injured, go out and grab that ammo, right? I'm like, wait a minute, go grab it now? Because there's shit going up and down the street, you know, and they're called bullets. It's like, we need it, go get it. And I remember thinking, I got so mad. I just stormed out there and got on my hands and knees and started grabbing all that I could, run and dump it, grab all I could, run and dump it. I was just pissed. And then grab all the water and brought it in. So everything was in our room now. What do you think is next? Disseminate that water and ammo. Hey, Tom, take this water across the street. You know, 30 feet can last a long time.
Mm-hmm.
You got 2 5-gallon watered cans in your hand, and you start to run. It gets farther and farther away as you slow down and you're, you know, trying to run, but everything's in slow motion. And then as it speeds up, as I get to the door, I remember thinking and screaming, "Eagle, eagle, eagle," because I'm going to get shot by my own people now because I'm running in this house, you know. And I don't know if anybody told them I'm coming. Screaming, "Eagle, eagle, eagle." I run in, I drop the water cans. There's nobody in the house. Now I'm terrified. Am I in the right house? Did they leave? You know, who's in here? So I kind of worked my way back, and they're dealing with business in the back side of their house, you know, because the crash site was directly adjacent to the side of their house. They're dealing with people creeping up the back. So, hey, you got some water in front? I'll bring some ammo over. You know, they're good. We're running out. So I had to run back across, grab ammo, run back across, take him some ammo, come back across. And I'm thinking, man, I hate being the young guy, you know, the new guy. At that point, the new guy got up. He better shook it off. And then, you know, it was one of those, like I said, all night long, repeated stories of just waves of people coming, little birds going back, rearming, getting ammo, coming back out. They blew through crew rest. For once in their lives, they blew through crew rest and kept going. And it was one of those things that kept us alive. And then right before sunbreak or sunup, it was the 10th Mountain came walking down both sides of the street. Like it was a Monday, you know, and they were going to the park, and they had 2 packy vehicles with them in the back. And I remember one guy coming in, started, "Anybody got any dip?" I'm like, "Bro, do you know what we've been doing all night? And you come in looking for dip and you just got here." You know what I mean? It was one of those weird things. And they set up like they normally do out in the streets. We're like, I wouldn't do that, man. I would watch what you're doing, because none of that worked for us all night long. And, you know, some of those guys started getting shot at, but they finally got the vehicles up there, pulled the helo off the bodies, put all the bodies on top of the 2 vehicles we had, because the rest of the convoy was about a mile away on the main street. They couldn't make it, you know, no armor wants to go down a tight street like that without infantry. So they ended up sending just 2. Threw all the bodies on top and all the wounded inside. And it was like, okay, load up and we're going to head on out. I thought, man, I was getting happy, you know. Flipped the handle on one of those things, start to climb in the back. And all I saw, you know, you can always get one more in a military vehicle, right? How many does it hold? One more. You'll get one more in there. Not that day. I literally opened the door and it was like a sardine can of Rangers. And it just pulled it shut and locked it back. And I'm like, well, I can't get in this vehicle. Nobody can. You can't get on top. It's covered in bodies. So they devised another plan. We'll walk along the vehicles and we'll use them for cover, and then we'll get back. That was a good plan until the first rounds came, right? And then those vehicles took off, and we're just standing there, and that's the Mogadishu Mile started. Running and gunning. I was out of ammo again. I remember people were dropping mags and reloading their mags, and I'd pick up a mag off the ground and knock the dirt out of it, stick it in. I'd 3 rounds, in there, and I'd grab another mag. And
It was that bad.
yeah, it was, and for me anyway. I mean, I don't, if guys are dropping mags with 3, and I'm like, all right, well, you're not apparently not as bad off it as I am, because I have 0 mags with 0 bullets. So I'd pick them up and start using them. And then I remember getting to heading south and getting to that corner where we were going to turn back west towards the target that we hit that night. And I remember they were sending an Apache in to rocket the Black Hawk. We had already put a incendiary on it, but they wanted to rocket it, destroy it more so nobody could use anything in it. And I saw the Apache moving around and coming on in, and I thought, I'm going to stop and watch it. I've never seen this before, right? It just stopped on that corner. I started watching, it just kept hovering and moving and back and forth. I'm like, it's going to take forever. It's regular Army probably. So I turned, and my team was gone. Everybody was gone. I'm like, what was I thinking? What was I doing? I just took off running down the street in the direction that I knew we had to go. And I got halfway down that street, and one of the medics jumped out. He said, Tom, here. And he basically pushed me in between 2 walls in an alleyway right as an RPG hit. Now, I don't know that he knew that. He was just grabbing me to get my attention. Right as an RPG hit, which messed up his ear, but it's right as he pushed me into that wall. So I missed out on that again. He got lucky on that one. Swapped some magazines, and headed back out and shooting in every door and window that you could, You just don't know who's shooting at you in the city, so you just shoot at what you see. And I remember finally making it back to all of the vehicles and all the tanks, and it was weird that the tanks were just shooting into the city. These armored vehicles were just rocking it. The 10th Mountain was rocking 50s into the city, and Mark 19s and launching grenades, and God knows what direction, what they saw. It was a sight to see. And I remember looking up at one of the Packy drivers, and I was like, smacked him on the head, and he looked at me. I'm like, thank you. And he just looked back like he was terrified, Like, imagine the whole night not in that vehicle, It's just, they didn't want to be there more than any of us did. And then they were trying to devise a plan on how to get us out. And the whole plan was to load everybody up and go to the Pakistani stadium, which was close, and then fly everybody back to the airfield in the helos. And up until about 2 years ago, I didn't know why, but our 2 Humvees, unarmored Humvees that we loaded up in the back of, just started driving. And we started shooting everything on the streets we could see until we crossed that road, the good clans. And I think I was still shooting towards and at people. Somebody screaming, hey, we've crossed the road. I'm like, I look, and there's a dude standing on the side of the road just chewing cot, getting high. And I'm like, oh, okay, all right, we're good. We crossed, but you're still watching people now, right? And it was terrifying. And we pulled up on like burning tires, and the driver started, what do I do? And I go, don't you fucking stop. Whatever you do, don't stop. Plow through it. I don't give a shit, but you're not stopping, So we plowed through that. Made it to the back gate of the airfield, went in the gate and sat there for like 30 minutes. Like, where's everybody at? They should be right behind us. Where are you at? Radio was dead, so I couldn't, talk to anybody. And there's a picture of me sitting on that Humvee with the 10th Mountain writing on it, and whatnot. And me sitting on there, I bummed a cigarette off one of those dudes. I'm smoking a cigarette next to 2 other team guys, like, and I remember turning to look at him and go, do you realize who you just rescued? You just pulled us out of the fight, And I had that little moment with the cigarette, and then I'd say, we got to drive around back to where we live, find out what's going on. And that's when I realized the night. As we're driving up to our hangar, across the street from us was the medical tent, the hospital, which the nurses would scream at us every night because they never got mortared until we showed up. And then we got mortared every night, and they were pissed off that we were there because, we drew in the mortar rounds. And I remember pulling up, and right before we turned in our gate, there was a little cutout off the side of the road. And I remember seeing, 12 bodies, maybe. Covered in poncho liners or ponchos, but you could see the boots. And I know the difference between Adidas assault boots and tan desert boots. And I knew who wore who wore what. And I thought there's way too many Adidas assault boots right there, I have no idea what's going on. And we got in, and got in the gate. I saw 2 Humvees with RPG blasts on the sides and in the windshields and bullet holes and blood on the ground and sand everywhere. Blood in the vehicles and the smell of bleach. I'll never forget that smell. I've smelled it, and it takes me right back in a second. And it's, they bring the vehicles back, throw sand to absorb the blood, throw bleach on it, and then load them back up and send it back out to try to get to us. And that's when that's when the helicopters started coming back and landing, and people started getting out. And that's when we started getting word as to who was gone, who was missing. Missing. Oh, we're missing people. How do you miss people? There's always a head count. I always thought, how do people go missing? POW, MIA? Who the hell goes missing? All right, you got a buddy. You don't go missing, right? And I didn't understand it until you go to war. And you're in the chaos and the battle, and you're defending your spot, and you're looking through these toilet paper tubes. So, when you tell your war story, somebody standing right to your left or right is going to call you a liar, maybe, because they didn't see what you saw, They're looking through the same thing, that fear of that's all I see. And then you look over here and that's all you see, and you got your head on a swivel, but if you're not focusing, your head on a swivel, you don't see anything. So you have to focus. And so everybody's doing the same things.